Hey guys, it's another Art with Miss Therese, and today I thought we could have some fun drawing salmon. And I'm going to kind of do sort of an all-purpose salmon. There's different kinds of salmon that we'll talk about in just a minute. But I always like to have a reference material so that when I do draw something, I have a pretty good basis about what I'm drawing and what it should look like. And then it kind of gives me different ideas on how to draw it. When I'm drawing something, I really like to learn about it. So I found some kind of interesting things. People have 206 bones in our body, and salmon only have between 23 and 30. So that got me to kind of thinking is, if we start drawing our salmon, let's draw our salmon basically from the bones up. And we're going to probably label our salmon, just maybe like a little scientific drawing. It'll be pretty basic, but just to kind of give you an idea to do that and enjoy your drawing and maybe be able to show it to your friends or your parents or your teacher even, and educate them. So what we're going to start out today, the materials we're going to need would be a piece of construction paper, color if you have it. And again, we did this with the last oil pastel project. You can use a paper bag. Either way, probably a darker surface because we're going to be using oil pastels. That's another thing we're using today. I'll remind you that we have lots at the front gate. If you're in the neighborhood, feel free to come get some, and you get to keep them. So I think we're going to go ahead and get started and build our salmon today. So what I'm going to do now is I actually am going to put a border. I'm going to keep it kind of narrow because I'm going to need this space. And again, curving that spine is going to allow me to fit a longer fish in. I could do it straight across, but then my fish is going to be shorter, and I kind of want a longer one. So this is kind of another way to sort of solve a problem. If you've got something that's kind of bigger and longer, and maybe you don't have enough room in your space that you're drawing in, you could maybe reposition it. And it also, when you have a curve to something, it's going to kind of bring a little life to it and make it a little bit more interesting. So here is it's going to be my kind of curved spine. Yours can be like this too, just a line like this. And you'll kind of notice that we're dealing with some shapes here. This is the tail. I'm going to make it, these are the ribs of the tail, which I think are cartilage tissue, not necessarily bones. But I'm going to add that. But notice we have a triangle shape here. And then if you look at the head of the fish, in my practice one, that's kind of a triangle shape. I'm going to have the mouth kind of open. Again, that just is going to add a little more character. You don't have to do that. You could just do a straight triangle if you wanted. But I'm going to go ahead and do a line like this where it meets the spine, and sort of there's that little skull shape, give a little curve to it, and have that mouth. There's kind of almost a little frown to it, and then the lower jaw is a little bit bigger because that's where it's going to kind of scoop up whatever it's eating. Notice I made that kind of narrower, and with the white oil pastel I can just go ahead and correct it. I might want that a little bit bigger there. So again, it's a triangle shape. You could just do a plain triangle if you wanted. And they're going to get smaller. They might get a little bit bigger in the middle, but they're going to get progressively smaller towards the tail. And again, this isn't exactly scientific, but we're having fun faking it. So that, again, is the basis of my fish. I'm going to go ahead, now that I have those bones in, I'm going to go ahead and outline the body of the fish. Kind of coming alive here. And eventually what we're going to have the gills, which is where the fish take in oxygen and let out carbon dioxide. And so there's going to be the gills there. So those are the gills. And this is going to be the dorsal or the back fin. And right behind the gills is going to be the pectoral fin, that fin there. And all these fins do, you have to kind of think about it. They really help the fish swim. And then there's a second, again, we have the dorsal there, the pectoral there, right behind the gills. Back to the dorsal here, we're going to have what they call a second dorsal, which is the fin closest to the tail along the back. And then we have the pelvic fin here, and then the anal fin right there. So again, we're building our fish. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to lightly fill in using white. There's my tail. And again, we're going to label these when we're done with the fish. Right now, I'm just going to kind of keep layering in color like this. Now I'm going to make my fish look realistic, so I'm going to stick with realistic colors, but you don't have to do that. If you choose not to, and this is just going to be, just like I said, kind of a sort of a generic salmon, and because they do change colors when they migrate, when they go up the streams to lay eggs and spawn. So I'm just coloring my fins in like it's like it's just a good old regular salmon. How's that? So I've layered this in to give it sort of a background and a basis for me to start coloring with my oil pastels. So I'm going to go back to my reference here and notice that the fish is darker on top and lighter at the bottom. So darker on the dorsal side or the back and lighter on the belly or the ventral side. And that's probably so when they're swimming, like eagles or other predators won't be able to see them, and because they're darker on top. So I'm going to start coloring this in. I'm going to use my gray, and if you don't have any gray, you could mix black and white together. In fact, we're going to do like a little of that. So I'm just layering my base color in here. Now the ventral side, I'm going to keep that sort of light or white, like my reference has here. Now I'm going to come back in again with, where's my black oil pastel? That's blue violet. And my black, oh there. I'm going to come back in with my black, and I'm going to very lightly, this is another technique when you're doing things like this. I'm not layering it in too thick. I'm just sort of scribbling it in a little bit, like this, and I'll be blending with that. That head's going to be probably dark too. So you'll notice I'm not doing things exactly perfect. I sort of like just layering things in and seeing how they're going to work. The fins are a little darker when you kind of look back at your reference material, same with the tail. And you'll notice a little part of that body kind of comes out there before the tail starts. So, and again, just have fun with this. So that's sort of getting the basic colors in there. I'm going to come back, since I have my black already, and I'm going to darken that pupil. Go back and get my white, and remember how we've done that, where you add a little bit of a white dot on top of that black to make it look shiny. My eye's going to be yellow because they're kind of yellowish in my reference picture. Again, I'm using my brush to kind of move some of the little pieces of oil pastel that fall off. You can use a regular brush with that. You can use your hands too if you want. I'm going to use the eraser that we've used before for blending, and that's going to make the camera wiggle. And again, I'm just beginning to build and layer. You really can't see the skeleton anymore. And that's fine, but if a little of that skeleton shows through, I guess you can kind of see a little bit. It's going to make for kind of an interesting drawing. And I'm coming back in here, and notice I'm kind of almost sort of painting or drawing with my eraser. But I can get that same effect very easily by using my finger. Maybe I'll use both. So I'm going to keep working on this, kind of keep layering things in. So I've found some other colors in my oil pastels. I found this sort of, it says slate gray, and it has kind of a bluish to it. So we're going to kind of add that. There's a little bit of blue in my reference material. Notice this is kind of a different technique with my oil pastels. I'm not holding it like a pencil. I'm kind of holding it like this. Any way you want to hold your oil pastel to get the effect you want is all right. There is no right or wrong way to hold when you're drawing. No matter what anybody tells you, there's no right or wrong way to hold a pencil or a brush. I'm going to do a little course correction here. Wasn't really happy with the first shape there. See, I like to take mistakes or things that I don't like and make them work. And again, I'm using my finger here, not necessarily the eraser. I could come back with the eraser and do that, but just sort of like kind of experimenting and seeing what's going to give me my best effect. Adding a little black to the tip there, a little black there. Again, just sort of building. I'm going to just kind of go around the eye a little bit here. If you can find a picture of a salmon too, that's a really good thing to kind of keep it next to you. You can find it in a book. So again, this is the pectoral fin here. I lost the definition here, so I'm going to come back with that. And again, this is, this fish is pretty loose here right now. Now I'm going to tighten things up as I work a little bit harder on it. Make it a little bit darker up here. What you might want to do one day too would be just to get out your paper and your oil pastels and just start messing around with them and seeing what kind of little special effects you can teach yourself. And if you've got a brother or sister or a friend over, or even better, you can trap a parent and have them draw with you. They might surprise themselves. So I'm going to keep working away on this. At the next time you're at the grocery store, go to the fish department and look at the fish and see what kind of things you can observe. You could even ask the guy at the fish counter or the gal at the fish counter to maybe tell you a little bit about the fish. You might learn some things. So again, I'm just adding a little bit of, the salmon do have some little dark spots here. A lot of this is like camouflage, so they can hide from whatever wants to eat them. So as I was looking kind of at my reference stuff, I noticed that there's a lot of little freckles or speckles on the side. And even though I don't really see any purple on that, I'm going to put a little purple here because it's going to kind of make it sort of interesting in my mind. And then if you want to make it look a little bit shiny, you could maybe add some white to it like this. So it looks like just a little light reflection there if you want to do that. And then I've got all this leftover space. I could leave it like this. But I got to kind of thinking, with all that leftover space, what if I sort of had some fun with it? So I'm going to come in with just some sort of decorative wavy lines that maybe can kind of represent water. So I can do that. I'll maybe add a little bit of white over that, just kind of have some fun with that. Oh, you know what I forgot? Remember we said we were going to do some labeling. So I've got a different kind of pen here. I'm going to make sure the areas where I am going to label, there isn't any oil pastel to stop the lettering from this. So this is my pectoral, and this is the pelvic, and this is the anal, fin, like that so people know what it is, tail. This was second dorsal, and this is dorsal. Trying to make it look nice. Whoops, I got into the oil pastel there, so can't quite see that. These will be the gills. And then I could just make a little line that goes to the label. And so it's almost like a little scientific drawing. I think it was kind of fun to do something like that. A friend of mine taught me this, the different kinds of salmon, and you can use your hand to remember the different kinds of salmon. This is your pinky finger, which would be pink salmon. This is your ring finger, where you could wear a silver ring. That would be silver salmon. This is your longest and biggest finger. That's your middle finger. That would be the king, or the king salmon. This is your pointer finger, or your eye finger. That's like when you're pointing something, that's like an eye finger, and that's sockeye. And then, of course, chum rhymes with thumb, so that's how you can remember the chum salmon. So those are the different kinds of salmon, and you can use your hand to remember them. So I hope you enjoy doing something like this. Kind of think about drawing maybe some other things that you can find and labeling them, and also doing a little research and looking things up. My research isn't perfect by far, but it's really fun to learn about some of the things that you're drawing. You take care. This is Roly Poly. He's kind of old, but he doesn't know it. And sometimes when you hear chewing noises in my videos, it's because he brings his little bone in and chews on it while I'm doing the videos. But let's let him do it because he's a really good dog. Maybe we'll draw him someday.